The first alien weapon fired with a sound like breaking glass mixed with screaming wind. A beam of pure energy shot across space toward the human destroyer Courage. Captain Dan Wright watched helplessly as the beam struck his ship's shields and tore through them like they were made of paper. The Courage exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the dark space around Mars. 23 crew members died in that first attack. Their ship turned to twisted metal and scattered debris in seconds. Captain. Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the Defiance as his friend Dan's ship was destroyed. He had known Dan for 8 years, had served with him on 2 different vessels. Now Dan was gone, along with his entire crew. "Sir," Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez called out, her voice shaking. "The alien weapons are some kind of focused energy beam. Our shields can't stop them." Jake's hands gripped the arms of his captain's chair. The aliens had just shown how easily they could kill human ships. But instead of fear, Jake felt something else building inside him. Anger. Pure, burning anger. "Lock missiles on the ship that killed the Courage," he ordered. "Sir, our weapons probably won't even scratch their hull," Amy warned. "Lock them on." "Anyway," Jake said quietly, "if we're going to die, we're going to take some of them with us." Admiral Kethvar watched the destruction of the human ship with satisfaction. One demonstration of their power should be enough to make the others surrender. But instead of running away, the remaining human vessels moved closer, their weapons turning toward his fleet. "They continue to approach, Admiral," Zexnall reported, confusion clear in his harmonic voice. "Do they not understand what just happened?" Kethvar studied the tactical display. In all their conquests, no species had ever continued fighting after seeing their ships destroyed so easily. Most surrendered after losing just one vessel. Perhaps they need another lesson, he decided. On Earth, Admiral Kevin Hayes stood in the command center watching the battle unfold on the main screen. The loss of the Courage had hit everyone hard, but it had also given them valuable information about alien weapons. "Get me Dr. Wells on Luna Station," Hayes ordered. Dr. Patricia Wells appeared on the communication screen, surrounded by computer displays and scientific equipment. "Admiral, I've been studying the energy readings from that weapon. It appears to use harmonic frequencies to disrupt molecular bonds. In simple words, Doctor, they're using sound as a weapon, but not sound like we understand it. They're using vibrations that can shake matter apart at the atomic level." Hayes nodded grimly. "Can we defend against it?" "Possibly. If we can generate counter-harmonics, we might be able to disrupt their weapons. But I need more data." Hayes looked back at the tactical display. "Morrison is still out there. If anyone can get you that data, it's him." The Defiance moved through the asteroid field, using the floating rocks for cover. Jake had ordered his ship to maximum stealth mode, all non-essential systems shut down to avoid detection. "Captain," Chief Engineer Marie Carter called from the engine room. "I've been thinking about those alien weapons. The energy beam that hit the Courage had a very specific frequency pattern." "Go on," Jake encouraged. "Well, sir, back in engineering school they taught us that every frequency has a counter-frequency. If we could generate the exact opposite of their weapon's frequency, we could cancel it out," Jake finished. "Marie, you might be on to something. Can you modify our electromagnetic pulse generators to produce specific frequencies?" "Give me an hour, sir, and I'll give you a frequency generator that can disrupt their weapons, at least temporarily." Jake smiled for the first time since the battle began. "Do it." Meanwhile, the main alien fleet continued toward Earth. Admiral Kethvar had decided to demonstrate their power by destroying Earth's orbital defense platforms first. These large space stations were armed with powerful weapons and protected by heavy shields. The first platform, Defender 1, opened fire with its massive railguns. Solid metal projectiles moving at incredible speed struck the alien ships, but bounced off their crystalline hulls without leaving a mark. War Prime Zethkol, commanding the lead assault group, almost laughed at the human weapons. "Their projectiles are useless against our hulls. Destroy the platform." 3 alien ships fired at once. Their harmonic weapons struck Defender 1 from different angles, the sound waves tearing the massive station apart from the inside. The platform broke into pieces, its crew of 200 dying instantly. But the humans had learned something important from watching their weapons hit the alien ships. The projectiles had bounced off, but they had created small vibrations in the crystalline hulls. Colonel Janet Pierce, watching from the command ship Liberty, noticed this detail. "All ships," she broadcast on the fleet frequency, "concentrate your fire on single targets. Look for resonance patterns in their hull structure." On Luna Station, Dr. Wells had been studying every piece of data from the battle. The aliens' technology was based on crystal structures that used harmonic vibrations for both offense and defense. But crystals had a weakness. Hit them at the right frequency, and they would shatter. "Admiral Hayes," she called urgently, "I think I've found something. The alien ships are made of living crystal. If we can hit them with the right sound frequency, we can make their hulls crack." Hayes leaned forward. "What kind of sound?" "Not sound like we normally think of it. We need to generate subsonic vibrations, frequencies below human hearing. Our sonar systems might be able to do it, but we need to get close enough." The Defiance emerged from the asteroid field like a hunting shark. Chief Engineer Carter had worked a miracle, converting their sensor array into a weapon that could generate specific frequencies. It was untested and dangerous, but it was their only chance. "Target the nearest alien ship," Jake ordered. "Amy, prepare to fire everything we have." "Sir, we only have one shot at this. If it doesn't work..." "Then we go down fighting," Jake said firmly. "Fire the frequency generator." The Defiance sent out a focused beam of subsonic vibrations. The waves hit the nearest alien ship, a massive vessel 3 times the size of a human battleship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then cracks appeared in the crystalline hull, spreading like a spider web across the entire surface. The alien ship's harmonic weapons suddenly went silent as their crystal focusing systems shattered. Internal explosions began tearing the ship apart from within. Admiral Kethvar watched in shock as one of his most powerful vessels was destroyed by the small human ship. The weapon they had used was impossible. How could such a primitive species have discovered the weakness in their hull design? "All ships, destroy that vessel immediately," he commanded. But Captain Morrison had already given the order to retreat back into the asteroid field. The Defiance disappeared among the floating rocks, leaving the aliens to stare at the wreckage of their supposedly indestructible ship. The tide of battle was beginning to turn. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Johnson led a squadron of fighters from the carrier Washington. His pilots had been watching the battle, learning from every exchange of fire. They had seen the Defiance destroy an alien ship, and now they knew it could be done. "Dragon Squadron," Steve called to his pilots. "We're going to try something new. Instead of firing at their hulls, we're going to target their weapon systems. Look for the crystal formations on their ships." 12 human fighters dove toward the alien fleet like angry wasps. Their weapons were small compared to the aliens' massive ships, but they were fast and could change direction quickly. The aliens turned their harmonic weapons toward the fighters, but the small ships were too quick to hit easily. Several fighters were destroyed, but others managed to get close enough to fire directly into the crystal weapon arrays. Each successful hit caused explosions inside the alien ships as their own harmonic systems turned against them. 3 more alien vessels were crippled in the fighter attack. On Earth, people watched the battle on their screens, holding their breath as their defenders fought against impossible odds. The aliens were still winning, but humanity was fighting, back harder than anyone had expected. Admiral Hayes received a message from the outer colonies. "Sir, colony ships from Mars, Europa, and Titan are requesting permission to join the fight." Hayes was surprised. "Colony ships aren't warships. They'll be slaughtered." "They're volunteers, sir. They say Earth is their home, too." Hayes looked at the tactical display. 30 alien ships remained, while humanity had lost half their fleet. They needed every ship they could get. Give them permission to join the defense fleet, and may God help us all. The battle for Earth's survival was just beginning. 3 days had passed since the first battle, and the war had spread across the entire solar system. Admiral Kethvar found himself in a situation he had never faced before. His mighty fleet, which had conquered world after world without serious resistance, was being slowly torn apart by creatures he had thought were harmless. The human tactics made no sense to him. Instead of fighting large battles like civilized species, they attacked in small groups from hidden positions. They would strike quickly, destroy or damage a ship, then disappear before his forces could respond. War leader Zexanol approached him with another damage report. Admiral, we have lost 12 ships in the past day alone. The humans are using the asteroid field as a base. Every time we send ships to clear them out, they vanish deeper into the rocks. Kethvar's crystal skin flickered with angry colors. How can such a primitive species be causing us so much trouble? They fight like nothing we have encountered before, Zexanol replied. They sacrifice themselves without hesitation. Yesterday, a human pilot flew his damaged fighter directly into our cruiser, Thunder of Victory. He killed himself just to damage our ship. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance, studying holographic displays that showed the positions of alien ships throughout the solar system. His vessel had become the command center for human resistance fighters operating in the outer system. Report from Ghost Squadron, Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez called out. They successfully attacked an alien supply convoy near Jupiter. 3 ships destroyed, minimal human losses. Jake nodded with satisfaction. Ghost Squadron was one of 12 such units that had been formed in the past 3 days. Each consisted of volunteers from the Colonial Defense Forces, miners, freight, haulers, and anyone else who could pilot a ship. Colonel Janet Pierce had taken command of these irregular forces. Her background was in special operations, fighting pirates and insurgents in the outer colonies. She understood guerrilla warfare better than anyone in the fleet. The key, she had explained to the squadron leaders, is to make them afraid. They came here expecting easy prey, but we're going to show them what real predators look like. Her plan was working. The aliens had stopped their direct advance on Earth and were now trying to protect their supply lines and support ships. Every day they stayed in the solar system, they lost more vessels to human attacks. Dr. Patricia Wells had not slept in 2 days. Working around the clock at Luna Station, she had been analyzing every piece of alien technology that human forces had managed to recover. What she was learning changed everything she thought she knew about physics. Admiral Hayes, she called over the communication link, I need to show you something incredible. Hayes appeared on her screen, looking exhausted. The stress of commanding humanity's desperate defense was taking its toll on everyone. What have you found, Doctor? Patricia held up a piece of crystal that glowed with soft blue light. This is a fragment from an alien ship. It's not just technology, Admiral, it's alive. Hayes leaned forward. Alive how? The aliens themselves are silicon-based life forms, like living crystals. Their ships are grown, not built. The hulls, the weapons, the power systems are all part of a single living organism. And that helps us how? Patricia smiled for the first time in days. Because living things can get sick. If we can create the right kind of virus, something that attacks their silicon-based biology, we can turn their own ships against them. Chief Engineer Marie Carter was working in a converted asteroid mining station, surrounded by salvaged alien technology and human tools. She had gathered the best engineers from across the fleet to work on a special project. The problem, she explained to her team, is that their crystal technology is too advanced for us to copy. But we don't need to copy it. We just need to break it. Technician Sam Davis held up a modified mining laser. This should work. It's tuned to the same frequency that the Defiance used to crack their first ship, but it's much more powerful. Good, Marie replied. mounted on the smallest, fastest ship we have. One shot should be enough to take down any alien vessel, but the ship firing it probably won't survive the return fire. Sam nodded grimly. I'll pilot it myself. Marie shook her head. No, Sam. You're too valuable as an engineer. We'll find volunteers. She didn't have to look far. Within an hour, 30 pilots had volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Johnson was leading another fighter attack when he discovered something that changed the war. His squadron had been pursuing an alien scout ship through the rings of Saturn when they noticed something strange. "Boss," one of his pilots called over the radio, "that alien ship is slowing down near the ice particles." Steve watched as the crystalline vessel extended what looked like feeding tubes into Saturn's rings. "I think it's eating the ice," he realized. That's how they refuel. The discovery was immediately transmitted to all human forces. The aliens needed to consume material to power their living ships, and they preferred water ice and certain minerals found in asteroids. Within hours, human forces had begun poisoning the ice fields with chemicals that would damage crystal-based biology. The aliens were suddenly finding their food supply contaminated. Admiral Kethvar felt something he had never experienced before in his long career. Fear. Not fear of death, in battle, but fear of failure. Fear that his superior civilization might actually lose to these savage creatures. "Report," he demanded as Zexanol entered his command chamber. "The situation grows worse, Admiral. The humans have contaminated our feeding grounds throughout this system. Many of our ships are showing signs of poisoning. Their hulls are becoming brittle, and our losses? 27 ships destroyed or too damaged to fight. The humans have lost perhaps 40 vessels, but they seem to have unlimited numbers of volunteers willing to die." Kethvar turned to stare out at the stars. In 3 days of fighting, he had lost more ships than in the previous 10 years of conquest. These humans were unlike any species they had ever encountered. Captain Morrison received an urgent message from Dr. Wells. "Jake, I've finished the biological weapon. It's a synthetic virus that will attack their silicon-based immune systems, but I need to deliver it directly to their command ship." Jake studied the tactical display. The alien command vessel was the largest ship in their fleet, protected by dozens of smaller craft. Getting close enough to deliver the weapon would be nearly impossible. "What do you need from me, Doctor?" "A distraction. Something big enough to draw their attention while a small ship gets close to their flagship." Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. "I think I know exactly what kind of distraction you need." 2 hours later, every human ship in the solar system began moving toward the alien fleet at maximum speed. It looked like humanity was finally attempting a direct assault, exactly the kind of battle the aliens wanted to fight. Admiral Kethvar watched the approaching human forces with anticipation. Finally, these creatures would face him in proper battle instead of their cowardly hit-and-run attacks. "All ships, prepare for battle," he commanded. "We will destroy them all at once and end this annoyance." But as the human ships drew closer, something unexpected happened. They began to spread out, not forming battle lines, but surrounding the alien fleet in a massive sphere. Suddenly, the hunters found themselves surrounded by their supposed prey. "This is impossible," Zexanol muttered. "There are hundreds of human ships. Where did they all come from?" The answer was simple. Every ship that could fly had joined the fight. Freighters, mining vessels, passenger liners, research ships, even small, private craft. Each one was armed with whatever weapons they could carry and crewed by volunteers who refused to surrender their world. The final battle was about to begin, and the aliens were about to learn what it meant to face a species that would never stop fighting for their home. At the center of the human formation, a single small ship moved silently toward the alien command vessel. Dr. Wells sat in the pilot's seat, her biological weapon ready to deploy. The fate of both species now rested in her hands. Dr. Patricia Wells gripped the controls of her small research vessel as she moved through the chaos of the massive space battle. All around her, human and alien ships exchanged devastating fire. Explosions lit up the darkness like deadly fireworks. Her ship was barely larger than a fighter craft, designed for scientific research rather than combat. But hidden in its cargo bay was humanity's secret weapon. The biological virus she had created would attack the living crystal structures that made up the alien ships. "Patricia?" Captain Morrison's voice crackled through the communication system. "How close do you need to get to their command ship?" She checked her instruments. The alien flagship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of Earth's largest battleship. Its crystalline hull pulsed with inner light as it directed the battle. "I need to get within 100 meters," she replied. "The virus has to make direct contact with their hull to be effective." "That's suicide range," Morrison said quietly. "Their defensive weapons will tear you apart before you get halfway there." Patricia looked at the tactical display. The alien command ship was surrounded by a protective screen of smaller vessels, their weapons sweeping space for any approaching threats. Getting close enough would indeed be suicide. "Then you better keep them busy," she said with more courage than she felt. The human fleet had the aliens surrounded, but the battle was not going well. Alien weapons were still superior to human technology. For every alien ship destroyed, humanity lost 3 or 4 of their own. Captain Morrison watched from the bridge of the Defiance as the freighter New Hope exploded under alien fire. That ship had been carrying mining equipment and a crew of volunteers from the asteroid belt. Now 67 people were dead, adding to the thousands who had already died defending their world. "Sir," Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez called out, "Colonel Pierce is requesting permission to begin the final assault." Morrison looked at the battle display one more time. Half the human fleet was already gone, and more ships were being destroyed every minute. But Dr. Wells still needed more time to reach the alien command ship. "Tell Colonel Pierce she has permission," he ordered. "All ships, execute Plan Delta." Plan Delta was humanity's last desperate gamble. Instead of trying to win a traditional space battle, they would ram their ships directly into alien vessels. Every human ship would become a guided missile, sacrificing itself to damage or destroy an alien craft. Colonel Janet Pierce led the first wave of suicide attacks. Her ship, the Vengeance, accelerated to maximum speed toward an alien cruiser. The enemy vessel's weapons tore through her shields and hull, but Pierce held course even as her ship broke apart around her. The Vengeance struck the alien ship near its middle section. Both vessels exploded in a massive ball of fire that could be seen from Earth's surface. Pierce and her crew of 23 were gone, but they had taken 300 aliens with them. Admiral Kethvar watched in horror as more human ships followed Pierce's example. These creatures were insane. No civilized species would sacrifice so many lives just to destroy a few enemy vessels. "They are all mad," he said to war leader Zexnall. "How can they throw their lives away so easily?" Zexnall was studying the tactical display with growing concern. "Admiral, at this rate of exchange, we will lose half our remaining fleet before we destroy all the human ships." "That is acceptable," Kethvar replied, though his voice showed doubt. "We will still have enough ships to conquer their world." But privately, the alien commander was beginning to understand that conquering Earth would be impossible. Even if he destroyed every human ship in space, the creatures on the planet's surface would never surrender. They would fight until every last one of them was dead. Dr. Wells pushed her small ship to its maximum speed, weaving between the larger vessels engaged in the massive battle. Explosions and energy beams filled the space around her, but somehow she managed to avoid being hit. The alien command ship grew larger in her viewing screen. She could see details of its crystalline structure now, the way the hull pulsed with living energy. It was beautiful in its own alien way, but it represented death for her species. 500 meters, she said into her communicator. Still approaching. Chief Engineer Marie Carter was watching the battle from her position on the converted asteroid base. She had equipped dozens of human ships with the frequency weapons that could crack alien hulls, but there were still too many enemy vessels. "Sam," she called to Technician Davis, "are you ready with the super-frequency cannon?" Sam nodded from the cockpit of his modified fighter. "The weapon is charged and ready. One shot should crack any alien ship, but the energy discharge will probably kill me." Marie felt tears in her eyes. Sam was barely 22 years old, fresh, out of engineering school. He should have had his whole life ahead of him. "You don't have to do this, Sam. We can find another way." "No, we can't," Sam replied calmly. "This is our only chance to hurt them badly enough to make them retreat. Besides, someone has to do it, and I'm the best pilot you have." Before Marie could argue further, Sam's fighter shot away from the base toward the largest group of alien ships. Dr. Wells was now within 300 meters of the alien command ship when disaster struck. One of the enemy's defensive weapons locked onto her small vessel and fired. The energy beam struck her ship's engine section, causing massive damage. Warning alarms screamed as her power systems failed one by one. She was losing speed and would not be able to reach the alien flagship. "Patricia," Morrison's voice called urgently, "your ship is badly damaged. Abort the mission and get out of there." She looked at the virus container in her hands. Months of work had gone into creating this weapon. "It might be humanity's only hope of victory." "Negative," she replied. "I'm continuing the mission." With her engines failing, Dr. Wells made a desperate decision. She aimed her crippled ship directly at the alien command vessel and engaged the emergency thrusters. She would ram the enemy flagship just like the other human ships had done. Technician Sam Davis flew his fighter through a formation of 6 alien ships, his super-frequency cannon charging for the most important shot of the war. Enemy weapons reached out for his small craft, but he managed to avoid them through skillful flying. "This is for Earth," he said quietly, then fired his weapon at the largest alien ship in the formation. The frequency beam struck the enemy vessel, and the effect was immediate. Cracks appeared all across its crystalline hull, spreading like lightning. The ship's own harmonic weapons turned inward, tearing the vessel apart from within. But the energy discharge from Sam's weapon overloaded his fighter's systems. His ship exploded in a flash of white light, taking Sam with it. He had destroyed one of the most powerful ships in the alien fleet, but the price was his life. Admiral HFY felt his command ship shake as explosions rocked its hull. Human fighters were getting through his defensive screen, and some were actually damaging his vessel. Then he received the most shocking news of the battle. "Admiral," a subordinate reported in panic, "the small research ship has broken through our defenses. It's heading directly for us." On the main viewing screen, HFY could see the tiny human vessel approaching. Its engines were clearly damaged and it was trailing smoke, but it was still moving toward his ship. "Destroy it," he ordered. "We are trying, Admiral, but it's so small and moving so erratically that our weapons can't get a clean lock." Dr. Wells fought to keep her damaged ship on course as alien weapons fired all around her. She was less than 50 meters from the enemy command ship now, close enough to deploy her biological weapon. But her ship's hull was breaking apart under the stress of combat damage. She had perhaps 30 seconds before her vessel would explode. 20 meters, 10 meters, 5 meters. Dr. Wells released the virus container just before her ship struck the alien flagship. The biological weapon spread across the enemy hull like a living thing, immediately beginning to attack the ship's crystal structure. The explosion of her small craft barely scratched the massive alien vessel, but the virus she had delivered was already doing its deadly work. Within seconds, the alien command ship's hull began to crack and weaken. Admiral HFY felt his ship shudder as systems began to fail throughout the vessel. Something was attacking the very structure of his ship, causing it to weaken and break down. "What is happening?" he demanded. "Unknown, Admiral. Some kind of biological attack. The ship's living systems are failing everywhere. For the first time in his long life, HFY felt the cold touch of fear. These humans had found a way to kill his ships using biology as a weapon. It was impossible, but it was happening. The tide of battle was turning, and the hunters were becoming the hunted. The alien command ship was dying. Admiral HFY stood in his control room, watching as the hull around him cracked and split. The virus that Dr. Wells had delivered was spreading through his vessel like fire through dry wood. Red warning lights flashed everywhere as ship systems failed one after another. The living crystal that formed the hull was breaking down at the molecular level, unable to fight off the biological weapon designed specifically to kill their silicon-based life forms. "Admiral," War Leader Zexanol called out in panic. "The virus is spreading to other ships through our communication links. Any vessel that has direct contact with us is becoming infected." HFY felt his world collapsing around him. In less than an hour, the mighty Zelnari fleet had been reduced to a collection of dying ships. The creatures he had thought were helpless prey had turned into deadly predators. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked quietly. 15 that are still capable of fighting, Admiral. The rest are either destroyed or too damaged to continue." 15 ships. Out of the 67 vessels that had entered this system with such confidence, only 15 remained. The humans had lost more ships in total numbers, but they seemed to have an endless supply of volunteers willing to die for their cause. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance, hardly able to believe what he was seeing on the tactical display. The alien fleet was falling apart. Ships that had seemed invincible just hours ago were now floating dead in space, their crews either dead or evacuating in small escape pods. "Sir," Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez called out with excitement in her voice, "we're receiving surrender signals from multiple alien vessels. They're requesting permission to leave the system." Morrison looked at the display showing the remaining alien ships. They were moving away from Earth, no longer interested in conquest but focused only on escape. "Admiral Hayes," Morrison called to Earth Command, "the alien fleet is retreating. Request permission to pursue and destroy the remaining ships." There was a long pause before Hayes responded. "Negative, Captain. Let them go. They've learned their lesson." Morrison was surprised by the order but understood the wisdom behind it. The aliens would return to their home worlds and tell others about humanity. Word would spread that Earth was not an easy target, but a world defended by creatures who would never surrender. Chief Engineer Marie Carter stood among the wreckage of her improvised weapons factory, tears streaming down her face. The cost of victory had been enormous. Sam Davis was dead, along with thousands of other brave men and women who had volunteered to defend their world, but they had won. Against impossible odds, humanity had defeated a technologically superior enemy through courage, determination, and the willingness to sacrifice everything for freedom. "Marie," a voice called from behind her. She turned to see Captain Morrison, approaching, his face showing the exhaustion they all felt. "Captain, I've been thinking about what we learned from this battle," she said. "The aliens' technology is based on living crystal structures. If we can learn to grow our own crystal hulls and weapons," Morrison nodded, "we'll be ready for them, if they ever come back, and we'll be ready for any other species that thinks humans are easy targets." On the dying alien command ship, Admiral HFY made the most difficult decision of his career. The Zelnari Confederation had never retreated from any battle, but continuing this fight would mean the complete destruction of his remaining forces. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "We are withdrawing from this system." War Leader Zexnol was shocked. "Admiral, the Confederation Council will demand an explanation. How do we tell them we were defeated by a primitive species?" HFY looked at the tactical display one last time, showing the positions of the surviving human ships. Even Now, after losing hundreds of vessels, they were still moving to attack positions, ready to continue fighting. "We tell them the truth," he said quietly. "We tell them that these humans are not primitive at all. They are the most dangerous predators we have ever encountered." Dr. Patricia Wells was dead, but her sacrifice had saved Earth. The biological weapon she had developed continued to spread through the alien fleet, killing ship after ship. Her colleagues at Luna Station watched through telescopes as enemy vessels broke apart in space. "She did it," Dr. Paul Martinez said softly. "Patricia actually did it. She found a way to turn their own biology against them." The other scientists nodded silently. Dr. Wells had become the first human to successfully defeat an alien species through pure scientific innovation. Her name would be remembered forever. Colonel Janet Pierce was also gone, killed in the ramming attack that had started the final phase of the battle. Her guerrilla tactics had shown the aliens that humans could fight in ways they had never imagined, but her legacy lived on. The remaining human forces continued to use her hit-and-run methods, striking at the retreating aliens whenever they showed weakness. As the last alien ships limped out of the solar system, the people of Earth began to understand what they had accomplished. A species that had conquered dozens of worlds had been defeated by human determination and ingenuity. The victory came at a terrible cost. Nearly half of Earth's space fleet had been destroyed. Thousands of brave men and women were dead. Entire families had been wiped out when their ships were destroyed in battle. But they had proven something important to the galaxy. Humanity would not be conquered. They would not surrender their freedom without a fight that would cost any attacker more than they were willing to pay. Admiral Kevin Hayes addressed the people of Earth from the command center. His words broadcast to every human colony in the solar system. "Today we faced our greatest test as a species," he said. "An enemy with superior technology and numbers came to conquer our world. They thought we were weak and divided, easy prey for their expansion. They were wrong. We showed them that humans will fight for their freedom with every weapon we have, including our own lives. We showed them that technological superiority means nothing against opponents who refuse to quit. Most importantly, we showed them and any other species watching that Earth is not a target for conquest. It is the home of humanity, and we will defend it against any threat." The surviving alien ships reached the edge of the solar system and prepared to jump back to their home space. Admiral Kethvar sent one final message to Earth before leaving. "Humans of the third planet," his harmonic voice said through the communication system, "you have earned our respect through your courage and determination. The Zelnari Confederation will not forget this lesson. Your species has proven that you belong among the stars as equals, not as subjects." Captain Morrison listened to the alien admiral's words from the bridge of the Defiance. He felt no satisfaction in victory, only relief that the threat was over, and sadness for all those who had died. "Amy," he said to his tactical officer, "send a message to all human colonies. Tell them the aliens are gone and Earth is safe." As Amy sent the message, Morrison looked out at the stars and wondered what other challenges humanity would face as they expanded into the galaxy. But he was no longer worried about their survival. Any species that thought humans were easy targets would learn the same lesson the Zelnari had learned. Earth was defended by creatures who valued freedom more than life itself, and who would fight with unmatched determination to protect their home. The hunt was over, and humanity had won. Word of Earth's victory spread through the galaxy faster than the fleeing Zelnari ships. Other species heard the story and learned that the third planet from the yellow star was not a world to be conquered, but a world to be respected. Humanity had announced their arrival on the galactic stage not as victims, but as apex predators. The hunt for easy prey was over. The age of human expansion had begun. Captain Jake Morrison walked into the command center of his ship at exactly 6 in the morning. The UES Frontier had been flying through deep space for 3 weeks now. They were far from Earth, checking old star maps and looking for new planets that humans might live on someday. Jake liked the quiet morning hours. Most of his crew was still sleeping. Only the night shift workers were awake, watching their screens and making sure everything ran right. The ship hummed softly around him. It was a good sound. It meant all the machines were working fine. He poured coffee from the machine near his chair and sat down. The big screen in front of him showed nothing but stars and empty space. This was normal. Space was mostly empty. That was why finding anything new was so special. Lisa Park sat at the communications desk. She had been working all night, listening to radio waves from distant stars. Most of what she heard was just noise. Sometimes she picked up signals from Earth or human colonies. But mostly it was just the background sound of the universe. Jake was reading reports on his tablet when Lisa suddenly sat up straight in her chair. She put her hand to her ear, pressing her headphones closer. Her eyes went wide. "Captain," she said. Her voice was different, excited. "I think you need to hear this." Jake set down his coffee and walked over to her station. Lisa had been doing this job for 5 years. She knew the difference between normal space noise and something important. "What do you have?" Jake asked. Lisa moved her fingers across her control board. Numbers and wave patterns appeared on her screen. "It started about 10 minutes ago. At first I thought it was just interference, but look at this pattern." She pointed to a series of repeating signals on her display. "This is not natural. Something is making this signal on purpose." Jake studied the screen. He was not an expert on communications, but he had been in space long enough to know what random noise looked like. This was different. The patterns repeated every few minutes. There were gaps and changes that seemed planned. "Can you clean it up?" Jake asked. "Make it clearer?" "I can try." Lisa worked for several minutes, adjusting settings and filtering out background noise. Slowly, the signal became stronger and more clear. Other crew members started arriving for the morning shift. Ryan Bell, the science officer, came to see what was happening. Pete Collins, the chief engineer, stopped by on his way to check the engines. "This is incredible," Ryan said as he looked at the data. "The signal is coming from coordinates that are not on any of our maps. It's from somewhere we have never been." Jake felt his heart beat faster. For all of human history, people had wondered if they were alone in the universe. Humans had been traveling to other stars for 50 years now. They had found many planets, but never any signs of intelligent life. "How far away is it?" Jake asked. Ryan did quick calculations on his computer. "About 2 weeks travel time if we push the engines hard." Lisa kept working on the signal. She ran it through the computer's language programs. She tried mathematical, filters. Slowly, pieces started to make sense. "Captain," she said after an hour of work, "I think this is a distress call." The bridge got very quiet. Everyone stopped what they were doing and looked at Lisa's screen. The computer found patterns that match mathematical constants. You know, things like pi and the golden ratio. These are numbers that any smart species would know. But there is more. Lisa brought up a new display. The signal repeats in different ways, like someone is trying to say the same thing in many different languages. And there are parts that sound desperate, urgent. Jake called for Dr. Amy Foster, the ship's expert on alien life. She arrived quickly and studied the data with Ryan and Lisa. "If this really is from aliens," Amy said, "then they are in serious trouble. The signal has been repeating for hours without change. That suggests automated systems, like a recording that plays over and over." Ryan nodded. "The signal strength tells us something too. For us to pick it up from this far away, they must be using enormous amounts of power. That is not something you do unless it is very important." Jake walked back to his captain's chair and sat down. He looked out at the stars on the main screen. Somewhere out there, someone was calling for help. Maybe they had been calling for years or decades, and the UES frontier might be the first to hear them. The smart thing to do was report back to Earth Command. Let the experts decide what to do. Send a proper first contact team with diplomats and scientists and military backup. That would take months to organize and months more to get here. But distress calls were about emergencies. If someone was dying, they might not have months to wait. "Lisa," Jake said, "keep working on that signal. I want to know everything we can learn from it. Ryan, start plotting a course to the source. Pete, I need to know if our engines can handle a high-speed run for 2 weeks." "Sir," Ryan said carefully, "this could be a first contact situation. Shouldn't we report to Earth first?" Jake thought about this. Ryan was right. There were protocols for this kind of thing, rules about how to handle meeting alien life forms. But there were also rules about helping people in distress. "We will send a report to Earth," Jake said. "But we are also going to investigate. If someone is in trouble, we do not leave them waiting while we fill out forms." Over the next few hours, the crew worked to learn more about the signal. Lisa found more patterns hidden in the noise, mathematical sequences, repeated sounds that might be words, and underlying tones that suggested music or emotions. Amy made a discovery that changed everything. "Captain, I found something. The signal includes what looks like star charts, positions of nearby stars and planets. And if I am reading this right, it shows movement, like ships traveling between stars." "You think it is from a fleet?" Jake asked. "Maybe. Or refugees. The pattern suggests multiple sources for the signal, not just one ship or planet, but several different places all sending the same message." Ryan brought up a 3-dimensional map of local space. "If Dr. Foster is right, then we are looking at a group of ships that have been traveling for a long time. The signal source is in empty space between star systems. That means they are not on a planet anymore." Jake made his decision. "Set course for the signal source, maximum safe speed. Continue monitoring and analyzing the transmission, and send a full report to Earth Command, including our intention to investigate." As the frontier turned toward the unknown signal, Jake felt the weight of the moment. Humanity was about to meet its first aliens, and they were meeting them because those aliens had called for help. The next 2 weeks would change everything. For humanity, for the aliens sending the distress call, and for the future of life in the galaxy. But right now, Jake was focused on one simple truth that every human understood. When someone calls for help, you answer. He looked out the window of his new office in New Paradise City, the first settlement built jointly by humans and Kalari. In the streets below, children of both species played together while their parents worked side by side. The plea echoed. "Through the stars for 200 years, he continued in his message. When it finally reached humanity, we answered. And in answering, we discovered that we were never meant to be alone in the universe. Elder Viridian joined him at the window. The old Kalari had become not just an ally, but a true friend. "Your species has a saying," the alien said. "Home is where the heart is. For 2 centuries, my people carried our hearts with us through space. Now, finally, we can put them down and let them grow roots." Jake nodded. "And humanity has learned something, too. We are not just explorers or conquerors. We are the species that